Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the nation of Sri Lanka. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Sri Lanka over the last few weeks has basically been descending into chaos. Everyday life in the nation of Sri Lanka has gotten objectively worse. It's gotten to the point where people are struggling to basically buy anything, right? The prices are outrageous and people just aren't making enough to really survive. And as history has always shown us, in a situation like this, when you have basically a country get to a point where everything is out of everybody's price range, basically, even basic goods and needs and stuff like that are out of everyone's price range, and the government is completely ineffective in solving the issues or listening to the demands of the people, it's going to basically end up getting violent. It's going to start getting bad. And that's exactly what has started to happen in Sri Lanka. So today we're going to be talking about the political situation of this country because it's a pretty major crisis going on in the world right now. It is getting a decent amount of coverage, I have seen, but I think that it probably deserves a little bit more than what it is getting. And it's gotten to the point where protesters have even stormed the Prime Minister's office, and it's getting pretty bad. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. Sri Lanka's political and economic crisis escalated as protesters stormed the Prime Minister's office on Wednesday, demanding the country's leaders step down after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to the Maldives without resigning. Rajapaksa has been expected to formally resign on Wednesday, but instead left the crisis-hit nation and appointed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as its acting leader, citing a section of the Constitution that allows a prime minister to, quote, discharge the powers, duties, and functions of the office of president when the president is ill or, quote, absent from Sri Lanka. Wickremesinghe, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Wickremesinghe, I believe, was also due to formally resign, quote, to make way for an all-party government. The lack of resignations further enraged protesters who want both leaders to vacate their roles as the country's 22 million people struggle to buy basic goods, fuel, and medicine. Hundreds of demonstrators breached the compound of the Prime Minister's office in Sri Lanka's largest city, Colombo, on Wednesday and entered the premises according to footage from the scene and local witnesses. So, to put it in a little bit of layman's terms here, basically as the prices of everything have started to escalate, as people have started to get enraged, there was a lot of protesting and a lot of calls for the leadership of the country to step down. Now, this includes the president and basically the Prime Minister and everything, and they basically wanted it to where all of this leadership would be gone so they could form what's called an all-party government. They figured that that could actually be more effective in handling the situation and getting prices under control, basically to get people's lives back to normal, right? At least to a level of normal that they understand and can actually accept and kind of cope with. But instead of listening to these protesters, instead of listening to the millions of people in this country who want new leadership, they basically have used a technicality to keep what is essentially the same people in control, which has only escalated the situation a lot at this point, right? To the point where, while they stormed the Prime Minister's office on Wednesday, right? When you're talking about it getting to that level, when it gets to that extreme, people can die. You know what I mean? Like, people could lose their lives in a situation like this. And as the article stated, this wasn't just like one or two people kicking the door down, like looking for him. This was hundreds of people. This was a legitimate crowd of people that stormed this office, that were looking for him, that are basically looking to enact change in the country of Sri Lanka to make life better for everybody. And well, the leadership is basically proving they don't care what the people want. If the leadership of this country cared what the people wanted, you know, if they cared about what these people are looking for out of their country, they would have already stepped down, they would have resigned. They were expected to do so, but then instead of doing so, basically the president fled the country. The grounds have now been taken over by protesters who are gathering in celebration following standoffs with armed police at the gates of the property. At least 30 people have sustained injuries and been admitted to the hospital, according to the Colombo National Hospital. A nurse at the hospital told CNN that many people were brought in due to tear gas inhalation, while others had cuts and bruises likely received when trying to jump fences. The nurse did not confirm any gunshot injuries. As per Sri Lanka's constitution, Rajapaksa's resignation would only be considered official once the Speaker of the Parliament receives a letter stating it. Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abweyandia said that Rajapaksa had reassured him of his resignation over the phone on Wednesday, but he is still waiting for that official document confirming it. At the colonial area Prime Minister's office, people could be seen on the balcony lighting firecrackers and waving the Sri Lankan flag, according to eyewitnesses. Demonstrators outside demanded that neither the president nor the prime minister be spared. This follows months of escalating anger over the economic crisis, with Rajapaksa accused of high-level corruption and mismanagement that ultimately bankrupted the country. As demonstrators demonstrators took to the streets. Acting President Wickremesing approved or appointed a committee of senior armed forces commanders headed by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Shavrinda Silva, to restore law and order in the nation, a high-ranking military official told CNN on Wednesday. Wickremesing declared a state of emergency across Sri Lanka and a curfew on Wednesday, only to later cancel both orders, according to the Prime Minister's office. In Colombo, a handful of protesters also entered the premises of state broadcaster Sri Lanka Rupavahini on Wednesday, negotiating a deal with broadcast staff to not give airtime to politicians such as Wickremesing. The broadcaster instead played history and culture programs. So that is actually, in my opinion, quite impressive. Like, these people have gotten to the point that they've literally gotten to the news agencies of the country and negotiated deals to basically avoid like the leadership that they don't want in office, to basically promote propaganda over the airwaves. Because obviously in a situation like this, right, exactly what would happen, at least historically, is the leadership of the country would try to like calm the protests and everything by making promises, by going on TV, trying to like, you know, sweet talk everybody, trying to basically get to a point where they can, well, spread propaganda to keep themselves in office. And the people of Sri Lanka have prevented that from happening and are very serious about what's going on. I mean, it even says like they're demanding that the president and the prime minister not be spared. Like, they're taking it to a crazy extent. These people are pissed. And I mean, it's kind of hard to blame them. Like, if you know the situation, if you know how long Sri Lanka has been kind of struggling, if you lived in a country where the president basically was corrupting the entire country to the point where it bankrupted them and they couldn't even do anything right, like life got to a point where it was so miserable that people couldn't even afford basic goods, you would understand why people would want to stand up and protest and revolt. I mean, I live in the United States and it's getting hard here, you know, for a lot of people, but in Sri Lanka, it's unimaginably worse. It's gotten to the point where, once again, they're storming the prime minister's office looking for him, trying to handle the situation themselves. Rajapaksa was forced to announce his resignation after more than 100,000 people massed outside of his residence over the weekend. His planned resignation would leave him without presidential immunity, potentially exposing him to a raft of legal charges and reduced security. After being blocked from departing the country at least twice on Monday, Rajapaksa and his wife managed to flee to Malé in the Maldives on Wednesday, according to high-ranking security officials. They flew on an AN-32 troop transport plane from the Sri Lanka Air Force shortly before he was due to step down. So the military basically escorted him out of the country to what is supposedly a safe location. I'm kind of surprised that they announced where he went, because you never know, man. Like, if 100,000 people are so pissed at you that they literally show up outside of your house to protest and look for you, at that point, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody really went looking for him. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of crazy to me, but it's a pretty bad situation over in Sri Lanka. I mean, I really hope for the best for the people of the country, man. That's 22 million people who are basically fighting for their way of life at this point, right? Like, I don't understand what that's like. I haven't been in that kind of experience, but it's definitely a dangerous situation, and obviously you look at it and you feel hopeless because, like, these people are going through it. But hopefully everything can be resolved, and hopefully the leadership of Sri Lanka will step down so the people can get what they want and they can have a quicker turn to basically try to, you know, fix their country and handle these problems. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubTheOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about Sri Lanka and signing out.